Do we always have to go bigger? You know, the firster ones from Xal'atath before us? No. Warcraft is actually packed full of fantastic villains, and today I think you're going to understand that. I'm going to quickly lay out just what the hell I think Zovaal was actually talking about, and after that, you're going to learn of the other genuinely cool things Blizzard could do with the already established lore, the many villains and threats that are there, that can be story, zero rug pulling needed. There is so much potential here, just like with squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming, today's sponsor. You know, the Pale Beyond, its reveal site was built over there, and really quickly, by the way, even using some custom CSS and code injection. And that's what is super cool, right? Extremely easy to use, but loads of headroom if you want to do that fancy business. And they've even got the likes of memberships, if you want to monetize that way, email lists, e-commerce, and loads of other fantastic features. Now, for us, well, we've actually got a fairly major beat coming up in the Pale Beyond, right? And its overall kind of, you could say, journey to market. And that's coming up in May. So, updating the site to reflect all of that, I'm not that worried about it. It'll take no time at all. It's so easy to use. And that is the handiness of building out from their award-winning templates. So Squarespace is the fast and easy way for you to have a fantastic looking web presence, and having that presence is important because it will be people's first impression of you online. So you gotta make that count. And to do that, head over to squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming, code Bellular Gaming for 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace. Let's go. First, a pit stop in modernity. So, you see these fellas? They are so much more than just World Quest fodder, and we did a full video deep dive, but to give you the quick on it, here's the deal. The Shadowlands ain't what you think. I mean, come on! Did you think there was always just a bunch of technology lying around the place from the very beginning? No. The raw Shadowlands is basically that place called the In-Between. Essentially, the bits of the Shadowlands that we go to are like artificial islands, and the in-between is the ocean. It's the actual Shadowlands, and when the Anima drought started, the Devourers started to pour forth through rifts to consume everything the first one set up. In Zereth Mortis, we see these wild, Ridley Scott banged a Tyranid style controller Devourers, and that shows us they may be a Tyranid, kind of Zerg-like hive mind thing. There's even more wild things going on. They infest Automa. And those of the Shadowlands almost see them as marking the end times. And then, when we look back to the Eyes of the Earth Mother creation myth, which is, a more allegorical reading of that is of Azeroth creating the world around her to protect herself from what the tale calls the Old Ones. And yes, those Old Ones, sure, totally could be old gods, but if it kind of happened in a time before Azeroth was actually a planet, a sort of time before the time we understand, then that's before the old gods were going about the place. And that might mean that these old ones mentioned in the tale, well, they very well may be a new threat. One that actually fits in with the Legion-era Doomsayer NPCs, and even, via a stylistic similarity, would explain what the Titan forces were doing with G'huun. Not that I even need to do all that lore justification, because these Devourers are clearly able to enter one of the most sacred places in the universe, one that is fundamental to creation. Now, this is kind of via the damage that Zovaal has inflicted, and Fareem is now worrying about the lasting damage to the first one's grand design. So, I think there's actually going to be a lot more going on with these Devourers. Let's talk about those old ones just a little bit more. They may be those who created the Devourers. I mean, if we're to accept that the first ones created the whole universe and the whole setup of everything, and then they went dormant or dead, then what opposed them? What else was out there when they were out there? Devourers are a very fundamental thing to the core of the Shadowlands, and the first ones actually made Maldraxxus in part to defend the Shadowlands against the Devourers. This kind of shows us that the first ones were holding something at bay. That there's basically more going on here. I mean, who knows? Progenitors often come in different castes, like the Ancients and Ori and Stargate, the various factions of Forerunner and Halo, and countless more examples in many other fictions. So, here's the thing. If the old ones were void, then how does it make sense if there's a Xerath Umbra, which is what's told to us by the Oracle? because that kind of shows that Void is actually part of the first one's design, part of those 6 forces they made. And with all this talk from Fareem and co. about there being a 7th force that is outside the 6 that we understand, well, I think that all means that something like that could be our big bad. Not that we need another one, so let's go and talk about some villains that would absolutely not be lame. The Light has done so much evil in Warcraft. And I mean in classic Warcraft. Just look at the Scarlet Crusade. Like, this is why the Light has got so much fantastic villainy potential. It's because righteousness exposes fault. And look, I'm from Northern Ireland. I know of people whose, faith in God drives them to charity, to good, right? And I equally know of many others in this country who weaponized faith to control people and further a civil war that lasted a long time, cost 3,500 odd lives, and over 47,500 casualties. Righteousness. It's a pretty good thing to have in a villain. So righteousness downregulates introspection. It shows us the evil that we're capable of when we think we're right. And that is why the Scarlets were such a good enemy in Warcraft, and it's why I'm actually totally down for major Light antagonism. A lot of people say the Light has always been good in this setting, and the answer to that is no. Obviously, that is not true. Look at the Scarlets. This part of the Light has been there for a long, long time. It makes for a great story, one that, like the Shah of Mists of Pandaria, can tell us something about ourselves. A story that actually makes players a bit more enlightened, if it's done with tact. Yrel appears to have went down the Scarlet Crusade path, per our last update. Turalyon has had some pretty extreme and hawkish tendencies, as we laid out in one of our past videos. Illyria will, of course, try to balance him out, and that balance, Light and Void, is represented in their son. Calumenethil has a complex Light situation. Anduin is a strong priest mentored by Velen himself, yet even he has used flickers of Void. So Yrel, spurred on by the Zira of her time, I think is the perfect threat to expose Alliance weaknesses. Perfect for United Horde, galvanized by the painful first-hand experience of the Mag'har orcs, to save us. I'd love a story like that. Azshara is one of the most powerful mages in existence. Her knowledge is vast. She was even privy to the secrets of the Void. Now, she travels the cosmos in search of, as she last put it when we freed her in the Nilothar raid, the true throne of power. So she still is the same old Azshara. What does that mean then? The seed of Void? The power of the Void Lords? The secrets of the first ones? Should she succeed, we will be in a lot of trouble, for Azshara could basically claim all the power of a great force, but without falling for the inherent weaknesses of each of the forces, such as the blindness of the Titans, the madness of the Void, the dogmatism of the Light, and so on. Really, Azshara is one of the last great classic Warcraft villains left, and she is pretty damn well set up for a great return. Seriously, what is Xal'atath's endgame? The Shadow Priest Dagger of Legion is one of the more interesting characters Blizzard have created fresh in recent times, and we've got to wonder what she's even working on. Could she be in league with Azshara? Who knows? There are convincing lore hints, though, that she's actually part of an old god, maybe one that was imprisoned within the dagger when defeated by the others. So that's one interesting lore tidbit. Now, Xal'atath, of course, has helped us over the years, though always to her own ends. In Battle for Azeroth, she used us to gain a corporeal form, and yeah, she later did just lead us to N'Zoth. Now, she probably knew that N'Zoth wanted to test us, and needed that dagger, because N'Zoth needed that dagger to get to Sylvanas, so Sylvanas could give it to Azshara, so that Azshara would feel emboldened to try doing her plan to kill N'Zoth, which he, of course, had predicted, and would count on us to interrupt because we passed the test with the Nat, thus freeing him. Yeah, that's just what that's an old god plan. That's what they're like. They can see multiple futures after all. Anyway, Xal'atath says, "Free me to find my own fate." The last time we see her. So that could go in so many different directions, some of which could end up with her being friend, some foe. And between her, Illyria, Anduin, and Locust Walker, I think our Void-capable cast is being built up pretty good. Galactic dragons. I'm not even joking. Why are there dragons in Elunaria? a world that we visited during Legion's final raid. Why are there dragons in Ardenweald? Does the Winter Queen happen to have a 6-month subscription to World of Warcraft, or is it something that's relevant to the lore? I think the latter. Now think of Galakrond. He's got this insane unlife thing going on, this sort of necromantic-like power. So what on earth was going on with Galakrond? We dove into more detail on this in the past, but I think one thing is for sure here. The dragons are not telling us everything. We have cosmic dragon hints, and I know people will kind of laugh about another IP that's had that, but I mean, the Elunari thing wasn't like 2016. Or was it 17? Towards the end of Legion. Anyway, we have their, I think, potential to have an even deeper connection to Azeroth then, because they canonically are descendants of elementals, right? Now, other worlds like Draenor have elements, so that kind of does mean dragons being all about the place. So there sure is more here. There's got to be more going on. I mean, we've only experienced dragonkind through our Azerothian lens, but we've evidently seen dragons in other places. Now, if dragons descend from elements as ours did, and other worlds like Draenor have got those elements, then there is just so much more to dragonkind than we know, and it makes me wonder what we'll find out in a Dragon Isles, should we ever go there. The Titans clearly did not tell us everything. They are the Order equivalent of the Death Pantheon that we just dealt with in Shadowlands, and we know they've got their own home plane. We know they've got their own Xerath installation. It's called Xerath Ordos. When it came to their minions, they kind of operated on a need-to-know basis, though. Mother, right? Mother was running crazy experiments in Uldir on something that seems part Old God, part Devourer, in, of course, the case of Gahoon, so that's weird. Now, if these Devourers can appear in the Shadowlands, then why not also in the Plane of Order? Big question. Now then, later, Mother spills the beans on there being further Titan facilities in Azeroth. We know of Uldorus and Uldaz, and a few others. We just have no idea where they are. Now, the thing is that Radden, the Prime Designate, literally the top keeper in Azeroth, he did not know about these facilities. So that shows us that there's more to the Titans, that they keep their secrets. It's been hinted to us that basically the Titans are friendly because what we do fits in with their conception of order. And that does make sense because most of us are in fact the descendants of Titan robots that were afflicted with the curse of flesh. That's old lore and it's neat enough. Now, what if we don't want to be ordered, right? Well, the Titan systems almost wiped our world clean in the Ulduar raid. So who's to say that won't happen again? Or that the Titans may disagree with us in their conception of order? What would happen if Aeonar broke away, joined up with Elune, and started, the two of them trying to defend the life that they both love against their cold, calculating kin? I mean, who the hell knows? But villainous Titans, it could go in many, many different ways, many different flavors. But the point is, there is more to them than we know, and that obviously means it's story fodder. Sargeras. He's in jail. Illidan is the jailer, and the jail is probably currently located in the Plane of Order. Hopefully, it's not just called the Maw. That would be a bit lame. But who knows how this is going to play out. What I do think we know is that Sargeras isn't over. He was not killed. He's not defeated. He will also soon find out that he played an unwitting part in Zoval's plan, and that his dreadlords were in fact incredibly disloyal for the entire time. Now add in Illidan naturally being a part of any future Sargeras story, and perhaps the whole, break glass in case of emergency button still exists. Though probably not as much this time, and I imagine this would have to be part of another broad narrative arc. Denathrius is free. We saw that happen in patch 9.1, and as far as we know, we don't see Denathrius at all in patch 9.2. Clearly, he's not tying his fate to Zoval's. I mean, hell, Denathrius is an Eternal, and he's the creator of the Dreadlords. I mean, legit, what if Zoval was actually a pawn of Denathrius? I wouldn't be surprised, actually, because Denathrius is pretty smart. We even saw him pretty much be overtly between the lines, if you know what I mean, villainous in the Zovaal death cinematic, right? So I think it would not be insane, considering how close Denathrius' Dreadlords were to Zovaal, and how Denathrius will survive the Shadowlands, that it actually would turn out that Denathrius is kind of pulling the strings all along in a way, but just letting Zovaal think that he was in charge. We just don't know enough of Denathrius' character to fully understand this, though, like his motivations. Perhaps he agreed with Zovaal, but chose to use him while himself playing the part of the servant. There's little point speculating here, other than saying, we know Denathrius is out there, we know his Dreadlords have got a score to settle, we know one Dreadlord is embedded within the light, Lothraxion, so there's evidently a lot of potential here. Time. Look, time is a load of bullshit, and as any Trekkie can tell you, time travel stuff can be great, and it can be a big mess. Now, FF14 manages to basically have time travel and an alt dimension, and still pulls it off kind of masterfully. So this stuff is possible. And let's be real, the Bronze Dragons could be our pathway to exploring some of the largest moments of Warcraft's lore. The wars of the first human kingdoms, more War of the Ancients, Nathraza, homeworld of the Dreadlords, the fall of Koresh, the Black Empire. There are so many moments as well from Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 that just could be revisited. And look, it would be a fun way to deliver us slices of what Blizzard knows we like. So why not try it? I mean, the Infinite Dragons are a neat enough villain who have been around for such a long time in the game's lore. And even if this was only a B-plot, imagine the cool raids, dungeons, and other bits of one-off content that we could get if there was some villainy going on with time. The Master, do you remember him? No, we're not talking about Doctor Who today. So check out this strange video that we did ages ago on the ethereal shenanigans. But the TLDR here is that the ethereals have been observing how we dress and what armor we wear via the Trial of Style. They've been observing how we fight via infiltrating the Brawlers Guild. And some of them, like Thermitage Rasheen, they have been collecting extremely powerful items from us for years. And that's not even to mention the ethereal that appears in the horrific visions in search of Black Empire artifacts. So that's all spooky. It all points to mystery, and at a few points, a mysterious master had been mentioned. None of us knows who that could be, but it could be pretty neat. And at the end of Legion, they did establish a whole load of void ethereals. So maybe there's something going on there. Get this. Thousands of years ago, before the Sundering, elves sailed across the oceans. Through a raging tempest they passed, emerging to a land they had never seen before, only to be struck down, shipwrecked by a sea beast that defied their understanding. Washed ashore, they formed camps. They explored. Years passed. Camps turned into villages, villages turned into towns, and towns into cities. And as this civilization developed, they tried to leave this new land they found themselves in, only for that same raging tempest to block them. They explore deeper. They find the Titan complex of Uldaz, dilapidated and infested with strange beasts. Years pass, the facility is made safe, but in reactivating it, a terrible plight is unleashed. Foul blue beasts that defy reality, intent on consuming all around them. They've had their civil wars, their political intrigue, they've risen to levels of martial prowess their Kalimdorian ancestors could never have dreamt of. Yeah, this is Laconia. You know, Laconia, you'll know that if you've read certain books, certain series set in space. Or maybe you've watched, certain Amazon Prime show, but here I'm just going to do it with elves. Look, what I'm doing here is an example of making some cool lore from threats that already exist. You see, the tales of elven mariners who went missing whenever they tried to sail basically off the world map, those have been part of Warcraft since like vanilla. Uldorus has already been established, as has Uldaz, so too have the Devourers. So what if, for them, this militaristic faction won out, and we have this new sort of elf that we've never seen before? I mean, come on. Just come on, think about how cool it could be. We could maybe take these elves and, you know what, even you could base them off some ancient empire but with modern technology, a little bit like how the naming of Laconia in the Expanse franchise, where that comes from. But, you could get a new threat, a new art style, you could get an expansion in lore that is grounded and very Azerothian. I just wanted to throw this in at the end of the video to communicate to you the idea that creating a cool new thing on Azeroth is still very possible, and it can be done entirely with established lore in a way where it makes sense and there's no plot holes. It's entirely possible. I mean, the only plot hole, I guess, is why didn't we spin around there in the Vindicar? But hey, if this is the most secret Titan technology that only Mother knew about, perhaps that could be obfuscated from us as well, who knows. There you have it, right. I hope that today's video just kind of showed that, hey, there's so much stuff that can be done with the Warcraft IP, and it's almost all stuff that doesn't involve saying, I mean, there's a little bit there with the Devourers, but other than that, it's stuff that doesn't involve saying, oh, hey, nope, there's another guy above Zoval, above the first ones. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You can still get a really cool expansion. So there's so much neat lore. There's actually loads that I didn't properly even go into in this video. So who knows, maybe it'll be a follow-up. But that's it for today. If you want a fantastic looking web presence, then go to squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. That link will be down below. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. Thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you next time.